Hi everybody, welcome back after half term. This is our recorded lesson for maths. This week we're going to be learning more about percentages. We've looked at percentages before and we've been converting them into fractions and decimals, and you were all really good at that. So we're going to focus this week on percentages of amount. So let's say I wanted to find 45% of £200. I'm going to teach you exactly how to do that today. We're going to look at some basic percentages first. These are the ones that you already know, and we've covered lots. We're just going to look at some basic ones. So when we're looking at 50%, I'll just write 50% here. 50% literally means 1/2 of something. So if I wanted to find 50% of 200, I would just find a half of 200, which is 100. Okay, so 50% just means a half. And just the same as 25%, you should remember, and it's really important that you do remember this, 25% is the same as saying 1/4. So if I wanted to find 25% of 200, I would just quarter 200. I'd split 200 into 4 pieces. Now, another way of saying that is to do, the operation is divide by 4. The same up here, look, a half is the same as 50%. You just divide whatever the amount is by 2. Okay, so they're 50% and 25%. They're the basic ones. Let's look at 10% as well. 10% of something just means 1/10. So 10% of 100 is 10. It's just 1/10. Another way of saying that is to divide the amount by 10, which we know we don't need to do a proper written calculation for. You just move the numbers to make it smaller. 10, so you just move the numbers once and it becomes 10 times smaller. So that's divide by 10. So one way to look at percentages is to use these really important basic facts to be able to find other percentages. So for example, let's say, I'll just move that up a bit. Let's say I wanted to find 25% of 180. Well, I know to do that, I just have to divide 180 by 1/4. And the best way to do that, is our written method for division, which is bus stop. And you do 180 divided by 4. So 4's into 1 don't go. 4's into 18. 4 times 4 is 16. So we've got 2 remainders. 4's into 20 go 5 times. So 25% of 180 is 45. So can you see we've just quartered 180, and that's the 25%. So if you're doing basic calculations like this, you can just simply use your knowledge and do the dividing. But it gets a bit harder, so we're going to have a look at that in a minute. So using these same calculations, we're going to see if we can find 75% of a number. So to find 75% of a number, 75 is 3/4. It's 3 lots of this percentage. 25% is 1/4, or 75% are 3/4. Okay, so to find 75% of a number, it's not quite as easy, and the best thing we can do is split 75% down into these easier amounts. So we know that 75% is either made up of 25 and 25 and 25, or it's made up of 50 and 25. We're going to go with 3 lots of 25%. So 25, 25 and 25%. Okay, so the first calculation we do, we just look at 1 lot of this quarter. So we look at 1/4 first. Okay, so if we wanted to find 75% of 40, we can't do it straight away, but we can find 1/4 quarter first instead of looking at 3/4. So 75% of 40. So we look at 1/4 first and we do 40 divided by 4. So 4's into 4. Go once, 4's into nothing, go nothing. So we know that 40 divided by 4 is 10. All we have to do now, if that was 1/4, we have to do 3 lots of this number that we've found. So we have to times this 10, which was 1/4, by 3. So 10 times 3 is 30. So 75% or 3/4 of 40 is 30. You find 1/4 first and then try 3/4. Okay, I'm going to give you some questions to do whilst you're watching this, and you'll need to keep pressing pause and then work out what their answers are before I tell you. Okay, let's look at question 1. So my first question to you, I'd like you to find 75% of 80. Okay, so think about that 75. Okay, 75% of 80. Remember what you have to do first. Look up here for help. And then what you do next. Have a go, and then you can check your answer with me in a second. Press pause. Okay, how did you get on? So 75% of 80, well, we know that 75% is 3/4. So we're finding 3/4 of 80, which we can't do first. We have to do 1/4. So to find 1/4, we just divide 80 by 4. So 4's into 8 go twice, 4's into... So 1/4 of 80 is 20. And now we just need to find 3/4, so we times 20 by 3. 2 3's are 6, so I know that that's 60. So 75% of 80 is 60. Just check that your working out might look slightly different to mine, but it should give you the same answer. Okay, let's look at the next one. Let's look at question number 2. Remember to press pause after I've written the question. Okay, let's do a harder one. 75, let's do 75% of 780. Okay, have a go at that one. Think about 25% first, and then try that. Press pause. Okay, how did you get on with this one? So 75% of 780. Well, first we need to find 25% because we know that makes 1/4. So 1/4, we divide 780 by 4. 4's going to 7 once, remainder 3. 4 times 9 is 36. So that's remainder 2, and 4's into 20 go 5 times. So I know that 1/4 of 780, so 25% of 780 is 195. But now we need to find 3 lots of that. We need to find 75%. So we have to get 3 lots. So then we do 195. You could do this in different ways, but I'm going to times that by 3, just in a written method like this. 5 times 3 is 15. Put the 1 up there. 3 times 9 is 27. Add 1 is 28. Put my 2 up there. 3 times 1 is 3. Add 2 is 5. So I now know that 75% of 780 is 525. 585. Okay, so we've looked at the one way to make percentages of amounts, but what happens if the percentage it's asking for is more complicated? I'm going to show you the other way to make percentages work, and it's very handy that with Mr. Wright you've looked at the coin multiplication grid where you write out the coins. So the coins that exist, we can do them like this. So we know we have a 1p coin in our money, we have a 2p coin, we have a 5p, we have a 10p, we have a 20p, we have a 50p, and we have a pound coin, but we're going to call it 100. Okay? Right, so we're going to set up a grid like this. Okay? But it's going to look slightly different to how you normally work it when you're working with Mr. Wright on multiplication. I'll explain why in a second.